Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar on the 2017 Macy Faculty Scholars Program. My name is Peter Goodwin, Chief Operating Officer and Treasurer at Josiah Macy Jr. Foundation. The purpose of our web conference today is to provide you an opportunity to hear from the principals involved with the Macy Faculty Scholars Program. We will share with you the program's vision, the program's highlights, and then spend some time talking about the application and selection process. Our agenda today is two parts. First, we'll have a 10-minute presentation, and then that will be followed by a question and answer period. And at the end of the question and answer period, we'll spend a couple of final minutes on some details you will need to know in order to submit your online application to the program. We have a hard stop today at 2:55 Eastern Time. This webinar is being recorded. You will be able to view the slides and listen to the presentation as well as the Q&A portion of the webinar on our website within the next week. For any questions you have during today's presentation, use the chat function on your screen. We will answer as many questions as we can at the end of the prepared remarks. And if you need technical assistance at any time during the webinar, please contact ReadyTalk, our conference host, at 800-843-9166. For those of you using social media during the webinar, please use the hashtag Macy Scholar 2017. And now I would like to introduce our presenter, Dr. George Thibault, President of the Josiah Macy Jr. Foundation. George?
Thank you, Peter, and thank all of you on the line for your interest in this Macy Faculty Scholar Program, of which we are very proud. 7 years ago, when we conceived this program, we felt that at a time of dramatic change in healthcare delivery, there needed to be comparable change in the education of health professionals to prepare them for successful careers in a new healthcare delivery world. In order to have such educational change, we would need educational leaders and innovators, which is why we created the program. So the vision of the program is to recognize and nurture the careers of educational innovators, to identify mid-career faculty that have already shown great promise, and provide them with protected time, mentoring, and a national network of educators. We wanted them to create educational change at their own institutions and to become part of a national cohort of leaders and educational innovators. I want to emphasize the fact that this is a career development award. It's not a research grant. We are interested in identifying people at the right moment of their career that they will get the maximum benefit from all that the program offers and that they have a maximum amount of time still remaining in their career to have that impact on others around them. Macy Faculty Scholars will be supported for 2 years, and I'll get into those details, but will be a part of a Macy Faculty Scholar family for the rest of their career. The program provides at least 50% protected time to pursue a mentored educational project at the home institution of the scholar. All scholars participate in the annual meeting of the Macy Faculty Scholars, and all of them get mentoring from a national advisory committee. All will participate in one or more Harvard Macy Institute programs, and they will have access to our national network of Macy grantees and other programs. The scholars are required in their first year to enroll in the Harvard Macy Program for Educators in Health Professions, unless they have already taken that course. The Program for Educators in Health Professions is typically held each January for 10 days and each May for 4 days. Scholars in their first year will be required to attend those sessions. If they have already taken that course, they have the opportunity to take another Harvard Macy course, and all scholars will have an opportunity, if they choose, to take another Harvard Macy Institute course during their 2 years of support. To be eligible for this award, The candidates must first be doctorally prepared and a member in good standing of the faculty of a sponsoring school. They must have served at least 5 years as a faculty member, ideally at the sponsoring school. They must be nominated by the dean of the nursing or medical school of which they're a faculty member. And each medical school and nursing school can only nominate one candidate. If a medical school or nursing school already has a first-year scholar, then they're not eligible to apply in that year, only for 1 year. And while we say that the minimum faculty requirement is 5 years, most of our successful candidates have been on the faculty for longer than that. And while we prefer that the candidates be continuously at the same school to maximize their impact, we have had successful candidates that have been faculty at other schools, have had faculty time at schools other than the one sponsoring them. In addition, the candidates must have identified a faculty member to serve as their mentor who makes a commitment to not only oversee their project, but to oversee their career development. They must have a fully developed educational innovation project that they will be asked to describe. And finally, they must be a citizen or permanent resident of the United States or its territories. The application process, which Peter's already told you is an online application, asks the candidates to state their career objectives and personal goals, to describe their project, to have a nominating letter from the dean of their School of Medicine or Nursing, to have a letter from their mentor that indicates that the mentor knows them, is committed to them, committed to their project, and to their career development, a letter from the department chair indicating that they will be, in fact, freed up from responsibilities in order to take advantage of the at least 50% protected time. And then a letter from one or two other senior faculty members who know the candidate and can speak to their potential as a future leader in education. If the project is an interprofessional project involving learners from a school other than the school that the candidate is a faculty member of, one of the supporting faculty letters should be from another school that the scholar is going to be working with. We also would like to see the CV of the candidate and of the candidate's mentor. Our selection criteria are that, first of all, we're looking for evidence of a strong career commitment to education. These faculty development awards are for career educators, and we look for evidence that that is the career track that the candidate is on. We're also looking for early promise as an educator or leader, which is why we require some faculty time before the application, so that the person has already shown that they have led an innovative project or that they've held some position of importance as an early educator. We're looking for evidence of innovation and creativity in their career up to this point. And of course, we're evaluating the project itself for its innovation and for its feasibility. We are also looking for evidence of strong institutional support, and we're looking for the environment in which the candidate is working to assure that that is going to support the career trajectory and success of our scholars. Our selection process. All completed applications are reviewed by senior staff of the Josiah Macy Jr. Foundation, and semifinalists are selected. All semifinalists applications are reviewed by our National Advisory Committee, who meet in New York to do that, and they select the finalists. The finalists are interviewed by the National Advisory Group, and the scholars are chosen in that process. The scholars will be notified by June 9th, 2017, and the appointment will begin September 1st, 2017. To just review the key dates in this process, February 15th, 2017 at 3 p.m. Eastern Time is the deadline for the receipt of complete applications. April 26th is the notification of the finalists who will be invited for interviews, and those interviews will occur in New York City June 5th and 6th. And notification to the scholars and to the sponsoring schools will occur on June 9th. The appointment begins September 1st, 2017. So we're now ready to open it up for questions, and we will take as many as we can. We also, as Peter will tell you, have on our website answers to frequently asked questions, and we continue to update that on a regular basis.
Thank you, George. On your screen, you'll see a chat box. If you're interested in asking a question of George about the program or anything he's talked about today, please type your question in. We are here in our offices triaging them, and I will read them aloud for George to answer. First question, George. Can your mentor be the dean?
Yes, the mentor can be the dean, and we've had that in a couple of instances. We need to be sure that the dean understands the nature of that commitment and has the time to devote to the candidate and to the candidate's project. So that requires a discussion first between the candidate and the dean, and the assurance in the letter that the dean understands that and takes on that commitment. But we have had instances of that, yes.
Next question is about the project itself, George. Should the innovation idea, the project, if you will, include salient references?
We have a limited amount of space, so salient references can be included, but in a limited basis, because we're most interested in the description of the process, both the idea of the project and then how the candidate sees it unfolding. So we want to use most of the allocated space for that description. But where it is helpful, a few references are certainly acceptable.
Question, George, about the mentor. Is it possible for the faculty mentor to be at another institution besides the applicant's home institution? We have had instances of that. It is sometimes problematic because the person at a distance may not be in the best position to advise the candidate either about problems that come up with the project, which might involve local logistics and arrangements, that on-site familiarity would be important, and also the advising of the scholar into their own career progress. So we have had instances where the candidates have had two mentors, an on-site mentor and a distant mentor, or where the distant mentor has previously been at the institution, knows the institution, and knows the candidate well. But I'd emphasize the fact that we see the mentor as playing a key role both in project oversight and in career development. And we want to be sure that all the candidates have the best mentor possible to play both of those roles. Okay, that's very clear. So staying on the mentor line, another question, George. Can an applicant's chairperson also be identified as the mentor?
Yes, the chairperson can be a mentor with the same caveats I gave for the dean, that the chairperson allocates sufficient time to do that role and understands the responsibility they're taking on. But we have had instances in which a chairperson has been a mentor. Okay. This question, George, is about the project itself that would be proposed. Are educational projects preferred that are in medical nursing schools
versus a continuing education project that would involve licensed providers?
We have had projects that do involve continuing education beyond the school. They sometimes involve learners from the school as well as practitioners. And again, it would depend upon the circumstances, that is, what's the oversight responsibility for the faculty and the mentor in those domains. We want to be sure that the scholar is working in areas, first of all, that have significant impact locally, but also in which there is oversight responsibility for the faculty, that the faculty has for that particular domain of education. So continuing education projects are certainly have been presented, and I would just want to be clear that they were central to the educational mission of that school and that faculty.
So several people have asked about the mentor being from outside the institution, and I will just underscore what George has already said, that yes, the mentor can be from outside the home institution. Next question, George. If an applicant is not selected to be a Macy Scholar, are there any limits as to how many times they may return as a candidate to submit their project?
No, there are no limits, and we certainly have had reapplications, and we've had successful reapplications. We always look in reapplications for what has changed since the first application, so we're looking for further maturation, development of ideas, and further growth of the candidate. So we've not put a limit on the number. Again, I'll come back to emphasize it's a career development award. We're looking for the right moment in time for the person's career, and that wouldn't go on forever, but we don't put a specific time or number limit on that. But we are looking in the reapplication process, those that reapply, we're looking very critically at what further development in their career and their project and their thinking has occurred since their first application.
George, this attendee has observed that for the existing cohorts of scholars, that a number of them have projects that are IPE in nature. How crucial is that IPE to include in the applicant's educational innovation project?
So IPE has been an important focus for the Macy Foundation for the last several years because we think it's one of the important educational innovations to align education with the changing delivery system, but it's not the only innovation. So we have had many successful applicants that are not in IPE. I think all of the scholars have been enriched by the discussion of IPE, which is being part of both the Macy community and part of the scholar community, since several of the scholars are involved in IPE. But it is not a requirement that there be IPE in the project, and we've had successful projects that are not IPE. We will sometimes ask the question, if a project is presented that might lend itself to IPE, whether that is possible to include it. But we are very interested in strengthening uniprofessional education as well as interprofessional education. And we realize that not all innovations will be interprofessional.
Next question, George, is related to eligibility. Is it appropriate to have two nominees from the same university, provided they are from different colleges within the institution?
Yes. So, and those colleges would have to be nursing and medicine, since the only two school deans that can can nominate are nursing and medicine. But yes, they can be simultaneously applicants from a medical school and nursing school within the same university.
Another eligibility question, George. Are faculty at an academic medical center eligible to apply?
Faculty have to have an appointment in a medical school. So it's a medical school dean that needs to nominate them. So they can be hospital-based, but they have to be a faculty of a school, and the dean of the school has to nominate them.
The next question, George, is also related to eligibility. Can the designate or the applicant be over 5 years on faculty, but if there is a co-PI involved, can that co-PI be less than 5 years on faculty?
They're not co-PIs. I want to stress the fact this is not a research grant. This is a faculty development grant. We're giving it to an individual, not to a team, and not to a so that the qualifications are the qualifications of the applicant, who is the scholar. So that's why I want to emphasize this is a career development award, not a research grant.
And also regarding the 5 years on faculty, for a faculty member who is not going to be 5 years on faculty until September of 2017, will that be adequate?
We want to see, at the time that we see the applicant, they should be at least 5 years on. So I would recommend to that person they wait a year. As I said, most of the successful applicants have been more than 5 years anyway. So somebody who is just barely at the margin would probably be at a competitive disadvantage even if we said okay. So I would say they should be 5 years on the faculty at the time that they're coming to be interviewed. And as I say, most of the successful applicants have actually had more years than that.
Several people, George, have raised the question about age of applicant. Can you speak to the average age of past applicants?
Well, that's a tricky thing because we're not allowed to make decisions based on age. So I do appreciate that the definition of mid-career is a variable one because people's careers take different trajectories and sort of start at different times. But if we think of the average kind of time of education and training for people, the overwhelming majority of people in our successful applicant pool are in their late 30s to mid 40s, but there are exceptions to that, and we don't have an absolute age cutoff. But we're looking at career trajectory, where they are in their career, that they've had enough experience to take full advantage of this, but yet they have a long enough career ahead of them that they will have the impact that we want all of our scholars to have and the opportunity to impact the careers of others that follow them.
The next question, George, relates to the duration of the project that's going to be proposed as part of the scholar's application. And that question is, should the project be just for 2 years?
That's a good question because many of these projects are multidimensional, and some aspects may lead to other things not even envisioned. What we want is a project that is at least can give measurable outcomes and results within the 2 years, so that the scholar has the satisfaction of seeing something come to fruition, and we have an opportunity to assess that. Many of the successful projects continue to go on, and that's something that we're always pleased about, and they may take on different dimensions from what has been learned but there ought to be some boundaries on it that give the opportunity to assess its success and its impact in the 2-year period, but not necessarily that it's all over at that time. But the funding support for the scholar is only 2 years. And the work beyond that would, of course, need to be funded in other ways by the institution or by application for other grants.
George, this question has to do with the selection process. Can you speak to the relative importance of prior publications versus other demonstrated success in education and education leadership?
All of those are important. We are looking for people who are going to have an impact locally and nationally. So some published scholarship is part of having that impact. So we do look at the published track record, but we also look at innovative curriculum development, presentations, national committee service, a variety of ways that successful faculty members have impact. But one of them is publishing. So publishing is one of the measures of scholarship and impact that we are looking for.
Question related to the proposed educational innovation project. And that is, George, how important is it that the project have policy implications?
We're not looking for immediate policy implications of our projects. I mean, we think overall the initiatives that we're supporting and the people we're supporting are part of a larger change movement in education and ultimately in healthcare delivery. But we don't see that each project directly leads to a policy change or policy implication. So that's not an expectation that we have. It's more the collective that we think has policy implications than that any individual project necessarily has a direct policy implication.
Okay, George, regarding the letters of support that accompany the application, can those letters from senior faculty come from colleagues that may be at another institution than the applicant's institution?
They can. Again, we're interested in people who can speak to the career potential of the applicant and know them well and can speak to why we should invest one of these very valuable scholar positions in this person because they are going to be the leader and innovator of the future that we're looking for. So if the person who can best speak to that is currently not at the person's institution, then that would be fine, but it ought to make clear how and why does that person know the candidate that well, and why are they the best person to speak to the qualifications of the candidate.
Here's a question regarding mentors. This person is thinking about having co-mentors as part of their application, one for career development component of the application and one for the actual education project. Is that okay?
It's okay, but there's one person who should be designated the principal mentor. And I have not felt that it's wise to make that distinction in a hardline way, because we really want the person who's helping them with their project to also be invested in their career. That person's going to get to know them well and have to be involved in helping them overcome obstacles and navigate whatever change they want to bring about. So I would be a little loath about looking at a career mentor versus a project mentor. We have had successful co-mentors, We do think one person should be the principal mentor, and candidates have benefited from having other input that complements that.
Another question about the mentor. Is it okay if the mentor is neither a nurse nor a physician? For example, it could be the dean of a school of health and natural sciences who is a PhD but has experience with IPE.
Again, that could be, and it's a little analogous to the mentor at another institution, and I'd give the same answer. If that person's in a position to really know the candidate, to really help the candidate get through whatever problems they're going to have with their project, and also help advise them in their career, then that could be a good mentor. It would have to be made clear that they really have accepted that responsibility and are invested in both the project and the career development, and are in a position to give advice and help in those domains.
Staying on a question related to the project itself, is it possible for the project to take place on more than one campus?
Yes, it is, but those are complicated things and may be complicated for a mid-career faculty member to be able to negotiate. So we'd have to look critically at the doability of it and the ability of the candidate to be able to pull it off. But it could be at more than one campus, but there'd have to be a clear test of feasibility of whether that's practical or not, and the person's going to have the reach, the influence, and the help to be able to do things on more than one campus.
Another question related to the project, George. Can you comment on how much is expected regarding achieving outcomes and impact versus just getting the project up and launched and going?
Well, we're always looking for impact, and of course impact is often not accessible at 2 years, and it's beyond that, but we're looking for the potential of impact and the likelihood of impact. It's hard within 2 years to demonstrate impact, although sometimes you can, both by local influence of others that have adopted similar approaches, or by invitations to speak and to disseminate the results. So we are looking that all of the projects will have impact. We appreciate that in a 2-year horizon, much of that impact is potential rather than real, but we're looking for the likelihood that it will have impact.
George, are there examples of successful proposals available?
No, the proposals themselves are confidential. People can look on site and online and see what areas our scholars have worked in, but we do not share the proposals themselves.
Yeah, and I would just underscore for those of you who are interested in learning more, if you go to the Macy Foundation website, there is a Macy Scholars tab, and we have a listing there and bios and project description of all the scholars dating back to our first class of 2011. Question, George, again about the project, and that has to do with the focus. Can the educational project focus on learners at the institutional level, such as attendings, nurses, frontline clinicians, or is the Macy Foundation more interested in focusing on medical students or resident-specific education?
No, and we spoke to that with an earlier question. So the education of practitioners within the health system is certainly of interest to us. The question I'd put is, what is the role of that faculty member, what's the role of the school and the mentor in that domain. In other words, are they likely to be effective in pulling it off and be able to control the variables if it's not part of their jurisdiction, if you will. So that needs to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. But we have had projects that did involve the ongoing education of health professionals, often in the context of also other learners as well.
The next question, George, has to do with the courses at the Harvard Macy Institute that are mentioned in the brochure and that you mentioned also as part of your presentation remarks. And that is, are these courses that are required paid for by the foundation, or is it the responsibility of the applicant?
No, we pay for the courses as part of the benefit of being a scholar.
Also related to the award, is the allocated budget used only to support faculty salary?
So the award is principally for faculty salary, because we are interested in protecting the time of faculty so that they can devote themselves to their educational project and their educational career development. There is a smaller budget available for travel and for career development opportunities, but we specifically are not supporting the salaries of other people that the scholar works with, or for equipment or other technological support. We are really interested in supporting the salary of the faculty to protect their time. Now, we realize and we hope in some instances, because we freed up money that the school or institution would be paying to the faculty, there may be other money available to support the scholar in other ways. Those are negotiations that go on at the local level. And but our money is specifically targeted to the salary of the scholar and those things related to the career development of the scholar.
So I will also add to that that the award is up to $100,000 per year to support the salary of the scholar. There is also fringe benefits that are supported as well as part of that award, up to $30,000. So it's salary plus fringe benefits. And as George said, there is a modest amount of funding to the amount of roughly $10,000 per year for travel and incidentals related to the scholar's career development as well. George, question about the project, the proposed project. Would we invite a project in health or medical humanities?
Sure, we would entertain such a project.
Another question regarding the 5-year on faculty, George. Does the 5-year time limit include years serving as adjunct faculty?
Generally not. We're looking for time as full-time faculty. The adjunct faculty position is used tremendously variable, and it's a little hard to sometimes tell how integrally involved that person is. So we're really looking for time that the person has really been a full-time faculty member. And that really is both in terms of their faculty development and where they are as a faculty member, as a developing professional, but also the likelihood of them having impact in their institution. If they've been part-time or in some more peripheral role, the opportunity for them to have impact is less than if they've been seen as a visible presence. And I understand there's a lot of variability in how titles are used and what they mean in different places. We try to do our best to interpret that fairly and consistently, and not everything is exactly the same from institution to institution. We know that. But we really emphasize the importance of full-time faculty positions, both for the career development of the candidate, but also for the potential impact of the candidate.
Question regarding letters of support. If a project is going to involve learners from multiple colleges at the same institution, should we get or do we need to get letters of support from deans of those participating colleges?
Not necessarily. I mean, the only dean's letter we require is the dean of your school, of the school of the applicant. Where there is work done outside, we'd like to see some support from the other professions represented. Now, but we don't want 6 or 7 or 8 letters from every candidate. And so that's why we do restrict the number of letters. Sometimes candidates have gotten a joint letter. If they're working with 2 or 3 other schools, they might get a joint letter that wouldn't have to be from the dean. It might be from key faculty, senior faculty, that have knowledge of the candidate and knowledge of the project. So I think that the important thing I would emphasize is the demonstration that there is a link to the other profession that they're working with for those that are doing interprofessional work. And the second is the importance in all of the letters, that the right letter writer is the person who really knows the candidate and can speak to the career trajectory and the career potential of the candidate. That's what we're looking for in letters.
This question, George, is about the nomination coming from the dean. So the faculty applicant is an educator at a branch campus of a medical school. The branch campus has its own dean. Can the dean of that branch campus nominate the applicant?
But he can be the writer of the letter, but the head dean should either be a co-signature on that letter or should have a separate letter. Because that school, that school of which it is a branch campus, still only has one candidate. So some schools now have 6 or 7 or 8 branch campuses, and there will not be 6 or 7 or 8 applicants from that. So there is a single applicant from the school. So the dean of the main school, that was the dean that the branch campus dean reports to, needs to sign off that this is the applicant that we want from our school, encompassing all of its territory and branch campuses.
So that would indeed affect applicants coming from other branch campuses of the medical school.
That's right. There can only be one from that school. Yeah. So having multiple branch campuses does not give that school the right to have multiple candidates. There's still a single candidate from the school. And that's why the central dean would need to sign off on it and agree, yes, this is the one person we're putting forward.
Question, George, about the project. Applicant wants to know how well developed must the educational innovation project be at the time the application is submitted?
Well enough developed that we can understand it. So you're writing to reviewers. Do they understand the project? Can you explain it in enough detail that it's cogent and comprehensible and makes sense? We understand that projects change, and even from the time of application to the time of interview, if the person comes to an interview, we actually expect there to be further evolution in the idea in the project. But at the time of the application, it has to be well enough conceived and described to be understandable to a senior experienced review committee.
Question regarding eligibility. It's an individual who's from another profession but works in a nursing program. Are they eligible to apply if they're nominated by the Dean of Nursing and mentored by nursing faculty?
Yes, Yes, we have successful candidates who've been of another profession but are a faculty member. They have to have a faculty appointment in that school, and then they have to be the selected candidate of that school. But they don't have to be either an MD or a nurse, but they have to be a faculty member of a nursing school or a medical school and be the selected person that that school wants to put forward as their candidate.
Also, question related to the 5-year faculty tenure to be eligible to apply. What if someone has 5 years as full-time faculty, but not all of that time as a tenure-track faculty? Can they apply?
Yes. Yeah. The criteria do not include tenure, and there's such variability of how tenure track is used and interpreted. So no, we do not insist that that be tenure track faculty, but just full-time faculty.
Question, can I apply if I have previously been a Harvard Macy Scholar? That is to say, they've attended the physician educator program.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You just wouldn't be required to take the course again, and you'd have the option to take other courses. But no, we wouldn't disqualify any candidate for that. That certainly shows their interest in the career and education, and that would not be a disqualification.
Question regarding eligibility as a faculty member. Are part-time faculty ineligible, or is full-time status recommended?
Full-time status is required. But as I said, not tenure track, but full-time faculty status is required.
George, how many scholars will the Macy Foundation fund this year?
We fund 5 a year.
This person would like to know if competing for a Macy Faculty Scholar Award interferes with consideration of a grant they might submit to the foundation directly.
No, we regard them separately, although obviously it's very unlikely that you'd get both given the limited amount of resources we have. But we would have to look at that. I don't recall that we've had that instance, but we would have to look at that separately. They would be looked at separately, but certainly in knowledge we would be aware, since the same people review them both, we would know that the person is a candidate for both. We might advise the person whether that they'd be better off doing one or the other.
Okay, George, we have time for one more question, and that is, what makes an application stand out in a positive way? And conversely, are there certain pitfalls that you commonly observe? So I guess that's actually 2 questions that snuck in there that we'll conclude with.
Well, I come back to what I said. We're looking for career promise, and that's what we try to assess, and understanding that it's hard to do totally on paper. But we're looking for evidence of creativity. We're looking for spark. We're looking for energy, passion about education and learning. We're looking for the environment in which the person is working, and we're looking for the insights that come from their faculty mentor and the others that are supporting them that speak to their promise as a future leader and innovator. So the whole thing is geared towards looking for the people, we're picking people who show the greatest potential promise to be the innovator and leader in the future. And that's what we're looking for, is all the clues to that.
Great. Thank you, George. let me just make some concluding remarks and wrap up. So we are utilizing an online application for this program. If you have not already done so, you must first go to our website under the Macy Faculty Scholars section. You then can register there. You'll need your email address, and then you can create a unique password. That'll be your identifier and will allow you to start the application. Now, once you start the application, you may save it and return to it multiple times, as often as you like, prior to submitting it. To start your application, once again, just visit our website, click on the Macy Scholars tab, and then click on the link that says Apply. You'll also need to get your institution's tax ID as part of the registration process. We've answered a number of questions today, thanks to George. We could not get to all of them. If you have questions throughout the application process, you may email us directly at info@macyfoundation.org. But before you email us, we encourage you to view the frequently asked questions that are posted on our website under the Macy Scholars tab. Since the program's announcement, a number of folks have called or emailed us with their questions. We posted those questions with answers that we believe will be most helpful. We will continue to update the frequently asked questions throughout the open application period up to February the 15th. And finally, as a reminder, by next week, this session, both the audio portion and the slides, will be available to view on our website. Thank you again for participating in this webinar. Happy holidays to you all, and best of luck to those of you who choose to apply.